Hi, I'm Pandora with Portland Makers, and I'm here today with three glass artists from Artistic Portland, and we have Anne, Dolores, and Linda. So we're going to be talking about kind of the way they make things and, where they do this, like in a studio and whatnot. So I kind of want to know, because I'm seeing a lot of different styles here. So how would you describe your design style?
My particular style, I think, I like a lot of bright colors. I work with primary colors a lot. I like geometric shapes, but I also like things to flow. So I like movement in the piece. So it's a combination of bright colors and movement and probably some geometric.
Nice, okay. And Dolores?
You know, I would say all those things myself about my style. I guess another thing that's different as we look at our pieces here is that my business name is Fused Light Design because I love the way light can come through glass. So I do use a fair amount of transparent glass with solid pieces on top so that you can see that light changing on it and affecting the piece.
Yeah. Linda?
Mine, as you can tell, is representational art. And I get my inspiration from all of our travels. My husband takes really wonderful pictures, and then I kind of use them to turn into the pictures that I make. I also can use transparent glass and do, but today I just brought two of them that are opal.
Okay. And do you have a business name?
Mine is Linda Gerard Art Glass. I don't have a website, but it's on Facebook.
Okay. And you mentioned your,
Mine is fusedlightdesigns.com.
okay.
And I am amglassstudio.com.
Very nice. I noticed you each brought some tools today. So I'm kind of curious as to find out how you work with those tools.
Okay.
Anybody want to?
You've got some of the basics.
I do.
Start with the basics.
Yeah.
We all use this set of tools here.
Yeah. So with fused glass, the only tool you really need for fused glass is a kiln. Really. Because you can break glass lots of different ways and put it back together. But if you want to shape things and get the designs that you want, you need a cutter. This is a very basic tool that every one of us has. They could be different. This is a pistol grip, so you grip it like this. There are also ones that look like pencils, so they're all a little different. But this is a very basic tool.
What does it have a blade, or why is it a cutter?
It has a diamond wheel,
Oh,
and you
okay.
run it along the glass, and I can show you that later if you'd like to see that. And then we use these breakers to actually squeeze on the scored line, and it acts like a fulcrum to then break the glass. So these are very basic tools. Another way to cut glass is with something called mosaic nippers. And so what you would do is you would just put a piece of glass in between here and just literally nip. And you can get random sizes and shapes, and you can cut rods of glass, you can cut sheets of glass. And it's called mosaic nippers because mostly mosaic artists would use this tool because they want different shapes and sizes. So these are very basic tools that I brought. And I can show you how they work later if you'd like to see that.
And so everybody else uses those?
We all
Yes.
use those.
tools?
Mhm.
Pretty
We all
much
use those
Yep.
all? Yeah.
Very standard.
Okay. What'd you bring over there?
These are circle cutters. So if you want to create a circle like these circles on this piece right here, those were made by, so the 5 inches or under use this, and you're basically on the glass. I mean, you can actually hear it if I do it right now. And then you use those tools that she had to slowly break it off of and use There's a missing tool here, but I don't think any of us brought it to kind of break that off so you end up with your circle. And if you're doing a bigger circle, like you want to do a big round piece, like an 8-inch or 10-inch piece that stands in a stand, that's when you'd use this. It suctions into the middle, and you just swing it around to cut the circle.
There's also a blade on a diamond blade on that.
Same kind of,
Same rotary blade.
rotary blade on
Oh,
I brought a few different tools that some of us use. This one is a torch, which of course I can't light here, but what you do with that is you take pieces of glass and you heat them up and roll them until you have a nice ball of molten glass on the end, and you can take a tweezer and pull it. And what you end up with are strips, sometimes very thin, sometimes a little bit thicker, and that's what's used for the trees and a variety of things, but mostly the trees there. Another tool I use a lot are their sifters, different size sifters, so that I can get the glass to lay where I want it. You can't just throw it on there because it will fuse in clumps and it won't look very nice. And the last tool that I brought is a thing that you put powder down, and I will just lift this up in a second, but it vibrates. And it just, you're able to kind of draw with your tool. I'm not sure if you can see that or not, but I just drew the little flower there.
what is pouring out that's drawing?
It's glass.
Oh,
it's,
it is
it's
glass.
powdered glass.
Powdered glass.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how does it end up vibrating?
There's a battery down here with a little vibrator.
Okay.
And then you can use different types, different sizes of ends depending on what you're trying to accomplish.
Okay. All right. Well, that's kind of neat, and that's how you make these.
It's how you make these smaller trees. Some of them are in the background here. Some of these are powder vibed. That's what we call this, powder vibe. And you draw the little trees in the background. So it gives you dimension and depth. If you look at this, you can see there's a foreground and midground and a background on it, and it's only 1/4 of an inch thick. But you can see some real depth in it.
Oh yeah, that's even with like the way the pond goes back. It looks like it kind of curves over. It does have depth to it.
Yeah.
And light. I mean, I even see kind of some, inspirations of light in
Absolutely. That's what you try to work into your pieces.
there. Yeah. And I'm noticing there's a cute little, what is this, a
It's
VW
a
van?
VW van, yep.
Like a
from-
hippie bus?
Yes, it is a hippie bus. Flowers and a peace sign and all.
But it's a clock, huh?
But it is a working clock.
That's so cute. What other types of things do you make?
Lately, I've been making a lot of clocks, but I also like to work with different aspects of fused glass where you build components first and then incorporate them into your pieces. So this piece that is right over your shoulder has something in it called pattern bars. So these pieces in the middle are actually constructed out of sheet glass that you layer in such a way that when you fuse it, they kind of fold into each other. And they come out in a solid cake that's about 1 inch thick, and depending on how long you made it. And then you slice that on a saw. And then when you get the slices done, if you butt them up against each other, they're a mirror image because you just cut them next to each other.
Okay.
So these are 2 pattern bars right here that have been butted up against each other. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bars. And then I like building them into the piece itself
Yeah.
so that it's not just a solid pattern bar, but kind of a decorative pop.
It's so hard to imagine, like just by you describing it. We'll have to come to your studio and film you making something. And that goes for, we can visit everybody's studio. There's another version of our show where we go to your studio. You saw one where we did
Yes.
Shelley with the metalworks.
Yeah, yeah.
That one's it's a lot of fun
Yeah,
to
yeah.
do.
Yeah.
And what did you bring to show us, Dolores?
Well, this piece I brought, I tried to think of different examples of the techniques we were using. So in this piece, I have a lot of dichroic glass, which is a type of glass that tends to change colors. Like if you stand it up, it's purple. I don't know if you can see that. If you lay it down, it's turquoise. It kind of flashes different colors. And it's made in a very sophisticated process where metals and oxides are microfused in with the glass to create that kind of texture and effect. And so this piece I actually made representative of my trip to Belize, and under ocean feel. I tried to get the feel of the coral and all the stuff floating in the water, but all these fish, I mean, it was so amazing there, the fish, the colors of the fish, and so I tried to capture that by using dichroic glass and the various variety of it. Again, each of these pieces though is a variety of layering. Like this piece, any of these. So there are two pieces to make the bottom piece. There's a clear piece and then the color that I have, which is blue here. That glass likes to be 6 millimeters thick, and so it likes a double sheet. And then on top of that, I've put a circle and this piece, and then a stringer, which I made by use a torch to kind of bend a piece of glass that's a long rod to create a stringer effect. So then you have to cook it in the kiln to a temperature and over a process that allows all that to kind of fuse together.
And I see you're wearing some earrings too.
Yes, I like to make jewelry too, because part of my theory about glass is it should be in our life as bringing more beauty into our homes, into our persons.
Yeah.
And because dichroic glass is so sparkly, it really kind of sparkles around people's faces, and I think
It is
enhances
fancy, like
beauty.
jewels,
Yeah.
like diamonds, yeah.
Yeah, so it's part of what I like about it.
And how did you get started with glass?
You know, ironically, thinking back, I bought my first piece of fused glass 30 years ago.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know what it was at the time. It was a bowl that they had obviously stenciled fruit with powder. I know that now. I didn't know that then. So I've always liked glass. And when I moved to Portland 20 years ago, I took a workshop in jewelry making, fused glass jewelry, and found out that Portland is a huge glass community because Bullseye Glass is one of the most renowned art glass manufacturers in the world, and it's here. So glass, you can take a glass class pretty conveniently here. And so
okay.
once I did the jewelry class, then I actually signed up for another class doing more, and it just kind of cascaded from there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Had you done any type of art before that?
Yeah, I've always had some sort of artwork in my day-to-day world because I was an accountant by trade and I needed the creativity as a release. So I've done some pottery, I've done some painting, I've done some silversmithing. So I'd done a lot of different things until I found glass. But once I found glass, I was pretty happy with that medium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Linda, how did you end up finding glass?
Well, I used to go to, I still do, but go to a lot of the art fairs that are around town. Again, big community of art here, all the tents that set up, and I was always attracted to the glass. Always. And one day somebody says, you can make this yourself. It was like, you can? So I took a class and they teach you just the basics and say, go off and have fun. And that's how you start. And after that, you have to figure out what direction you want to go. And can you get very far yourself before you have to take classes from people who have tricks of the trade that they're willing to share.
And so did you end up like buying a kiln right away?
I don't know if I want to say right away. I was going to a place that I call it rented kilns. And I would take all my work over there and clean it and put it in and go back and pick it up when it was done. And I sold so much of that. I was still working at the time. Everybody just came to my office and bought everything that I ever put out. And so for Christmas, my husband surprised me and he bought a kiln and actually picked it up on Saturday and put it in place. And on Sunday was Christmas. So
Woohoo!
yeah,
That's
All
wonderful.
right.
That's cool.
That's wonderful.
and that lasted about 3 years till I felt I needed a bigger one. So I still have the small one, but I got a bigger one as well. So I have two.
You have to see how interested you are first before you go for the
Yes.
big one. Yeah. How did you get started?
I've been doing glass for about 18 years, but I got started by taking a class too, just being really interested in it. And I worked for, 15 of those years just working in big studio places where anyone could come and work in the studio, and they fired your pieces and you paid by, you know, how much the size and all of that. So I didn't actually get a kiln till I moved back here to Portland, Vancouver area, and found a used kiln and got it set up. And so I haven't had control of that step. And it's a huge difference to have control of that step. It made me realize how a lot of times when something failed or I really wasn't happy with how it turned out, that it really had to do that. It was just grouped with all these other pieces of different sizes and shapes and cooked to a certain set temperature. And you can do a lot to control your own program when you have your own kiln
Oh, okay.
to make it, you know, so you can stop it just at the right spot and things like that.
And you do have to be really careful with all of your schedules. For instance, mine is very textural. You can see things are stacked on top of other things. Some of these are as well. And you have to ramp slow enough so that the glass will heat evenly. Glass is a terrible conductor of heat. And so you have to fuse up a little bit and hold, fuse up a little bit and hold, and then same thing back down. Otherwise, you end up with shattered pieces.
Ooh.
Yeah, so you do
Yeah.
need to fully understand your kiln schedules.
Yeah. Have you been to each other's studios?
No.
I don't think so.
I've been to
Have you been to
yours.
mine?
Yeah. Not where you were working, but for
Yeah.
the party.
Oh, yes. I host the Oregon Glass Guild holiday party at my house. So, yes,
Ooh,
she was here for
fun.
that.
Yeah. Okay, so you didn't get to like compare how you each did things if it was different. Just by like chatting here, is there anything that any of you have noticed that might be different that you do as far as like process of making something?
I think the process is pretty similar except for techniques. So like combing, like this piece, you should talk about your combed piece.
So this is a process where you stack the glass in the kiln just in straight lines. That's how it goes in the kiln. And then you put dams around it so it won't move,
Like bricks.
like bricks. And then you heat that up to about 1700 degrees when it's really molten. And then you kind of stab it with a stainless steel rake, and then you pull it. And then you get out and you heat the kiln back up to 1700 degrees again, and then you can also push it. And so that's called combing. So that's moving the glass while it's actually molten.
And when you say stacked, was it actually like
It,
stacked up like this?
it
Oh,
started out
that-
like it started
that
out like
direction.
this.
Okay,
This
that
direction.
Yeah.
Each of these small pieces of glass stacked in this direction,
Standing on edge.
on edge. Thank you.
quarter
On
inch
end.
pieces of glass.
On end, standing on end. And then again, you take it to 1700 degrees, put in your stainless steel rod, and you pull. It's a really fascinating process.
And the kiln is cooling very quickly. That's why you have to stop, close it, and heat it back up again.
Oh,
As soon as,
really?
as soon as
Okay.
you open that, the heat is just escaping very quickly.
You're working very hot
Uh-huh.
in that process.
How hot is it?
1700 degrees.
Ooh.
So you probably wear Kevlar and glasses. And
Yeah, no polyester, no hairspray.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, you have to
Wow.
be a little
Yeah, you're not working with a
thoughtful.
home oven here.
No,
No.
no, you have to be pretty thoughtful about what you're wearing. And
So so another piece of that is you're working with full fused is when you want it totally all one level like this plate, so it could be used as a plate. It's full fused, so it's that
flat.
taken to a certain temperature flat, and then you use a mold to slump it to create a shape. Like this candle, for example, it was a flat 8x8. Yikes! I better not sit forward. Like that piece there, this is 8x8, but it isn't flat. But let's imagine it's flat. You lay it down like this, and with the temperature and process, it will slowly just kind of melt down
It'll
the
drape.
sides of that to create this drape.
Oh, I see.
So we use a lot of molds for the shaping to get it to have. This is also done on a metal mold that's kind of an S-shaped form. Again, you're laying it on it flat and using a certain slow process. It slowly melts because glass likes to move at a molten level. It likes to move.
I've heard some people say that it was actually a liquid.
It's pretty liquid at that stage. That's
Yeah.
why she can comb it like that.
Yeah, once it gets to 1,000 degrees, it's considered liquid.
Uh-huh.
And you can't do much with it at 1,000, but that's the breaking point. So once we hit 1,000, we can go up very quickly or come down very quickly. But once you get between 100 and 1,000, whether you're going up or down, it's a very controlled process. So 1,000 is considered molten, considered liquid, excuse me, but it really isn't yet. You have to keep going. Like she has to go up to 1,700 to get it
So it'll
melted
move.
enough to move.
Yeah.
Although most pieces, like if you're just full fusing it, it's more like 1,500.
Yeah.
That's the typical.
And like
Or-
this one that's really crispy, crunchy, that's probably about 1,280.
I'm noticing that some are very shiny and this one has a matte look.
Yeah, this one, as a matter of fact, was sandblasted, so that's
Yeah,
yet
that's
another
good.
process you can do.
Oh, okay.
So if you don't want a totally shiny finish to it, you take it to a sandblaster and then you get this nice, beautiful matte finish.
And how did you get all these, like there's circles of color?
Well, these little circles of colors are actually called murinis. This is yet another component that you build first and then incorporate into your work. And this is a really fascinating process because you take about 30 pieces of sheet glass cut into circles, you put them into a crucible of some sort, in a kiln over your head, you get that molten, and then you pull a plug out of the bottom of that crucible, and the glass starts to ooze out of the bottom, and you use tools to pull it. And as you pull it down, the circles get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. It's really
I'm gonna
fascinating.
Have to come and see that. That's wild.
It's really
And then
fascinating.
you have to clip it.
Yeah, then you cool
to get
it.
the dots, to get the small little pieces. You're basically using something
After
like
it's
this.
hard, you clip it.
After
Yes.
it's hard,
Okay.
right.
After it's cool and hard, you use your
All right.
mosaic nippers and you cut it into small pieces and then you assemble this.
Uh-huh.
So these are all each individual pieces of glass.
Right.
Hundreds of them here.
Oh dear.
Yeah, this took a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's why it's not shiny, because of the sandblasting.
And then another thing that I do, the opposite maybe of what you just saw, you can see that this is kind of sparkly. So when I finished the picture, I took this is powdered frit, the next size up is fine, and it's kind of like salt. And I sprinkled that all over the top and then just fused it to about probably 1,300. And it's just enough to get it to tack to the piece, but it's still very sparkly when light hits it in different directions. And I like it because it reminds me of ice crystals in the air, since it is
Goes
a
with the
winter
piece.
scene.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
How do you get it so that it's like a painting? Is
Well-
it, I mean, are you painting?
No,
with,
no, I use sifters to get the powders where I want them. I use this powder vibe to draw trees in the backgrounds. And up here is, again, all sifted. Sometimes I use a little spoon to kind of put things where I want it. And trust me, this little cheap spoon is outstanding. You get the better ones and you can't do anything with it. It's a prize, really.
And then you're using larger frit probably over here.
Yep,
right?
I used up to coarse frit, and I might have even had a few of them are really large, so I probably even had some that I'd cut with the mosaic nippers and use a little bit bigger, so I could get a look of a very full landscape in the fall, as if the leaves were all falling down and collecting on the ground.
And is it attached to that
Nope.
marble or
Nope,
rock?
that is just a film, stand that we made. Yep, that's
Oh,
all.
you made the stand too, though?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And I've seen some that you have in the store where you've got the light shining through the back.
Right, like Dolores, there are some that I make that utilize transparent and opaque glass. Those are the ones that typically go in stands and allow light to come through. This one is actually, let me show you, a wall piece. So I have a piece connected to it, and you just hang it just like a picture. But for today, I thought we might want to see it upright.
That's a big piece.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Is that about as big
That's
as they
the
get?
biggest one that I can do in my kiln.
Okay.
My kiln is 20 by 20. But there are 4 by 6 foot kilns. I don't think any of us own one of those. Those are serious glass makers.
Yeah.
Or studio.
Yes.
Are your studios all in Portland then?
Mine's in my home.
Mine's in my home,
Mine's in my home, but I'm in Vancouver.
Okay.
and I'm in Beaverton.
Close
I'm in
enough.
Beaverton as well.
Okay. Well, you're in the Portland area.
Yeah.
Then.
Yeah, Portland
Definitely.
Metro. We're in Portland Metro.
And then, how long have you each been at Artistic Portland?
I am relatively new to Artistic Portland. I've only been there since July. And Linda was the one that recommended it to me.
So we're probably boink, boink, boink. 'cause
Exactly.
I've been in about a year and a half as part of the co-op.
Okay.
And I've been just over 2 years.
And do you have them in any other stores, or do you show other places?
I know I do some shows. There's a show in the spring called Gathering of the Guilds, which is a very large, multi-craft show in the convention center every April. I do that, and then I do some holiday ones, holiday shows, craft shows. But I'm not in any other stores.
Nor am I. I have done some home studio shows or part of the guild shows, but I have really been focusing more on Artistic Portland, along with my other job. It's been enough for me. For keeping.
And I also have my work at Alberta Street Gallery. And I don't do the shows that I have to take all my wares to, because glass, not only is it somewhat fragile, it's extremely heavy.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of done with that. So I have open studios in my home. I can just have one whenever I want it, put up signs, spread the news. But in the fall, I do two. One of them is the Washington County Open Studio Tour, and that's in October. And then the Oregon Glass Guild Open Studio Tour is in November.
It's addictive. I mean, glass is just there's so many things you can do with it, so many ways of playing with it, that it's an endless source of learning, which is wonderful.
And it's also a surprise
I was gonna
every time
say.
you open the kiln.
Yeah.
As much as you try to learn about it and learn your schedules, sometimes things don't work out, and other times it's like Christmas morning. I got the best piece of glass I've seen in a long time. So it has a mind of its own, as much as we try to control it.
That's the fun part.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It is the fun part. It's very unpredictable, even though there are structured rules and things that help you get what you want. But beyond that, it is kind of magical, really, because it's got its own fluidity and its own life, and the mix of every color and how that sheet was made and what piece.
And I just brought a artist into town for the Glass Guild, and we had some shows. Actually, Anne was in, or not shows, classes, and Anne was in one of them. And when you have 8 people that are making the identical piece, and they all come out different, you kind of wonder how. But that's glass. That's just how it works.
Nice. It looks like you all really enjoy your art form.
Yep, love
Very
it.
much.
Yeah.
Yep, very
Well,
much.
thank you so much for being on Portland Makers today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
inviting us.